Hi, and welcome to Open BxRx Tuesday on BronxNet, a weekly program providing you with the latest information, resources, services, and community efforts taking place locally here in the Bronx and virtually. I'm your host, Kibin Alleyne. Coming up, New York State Senator Sepúlveda teamed up with local organization to offer free legal services to the Bronx. Senator Sepúlveda joined me to discuss the importance of helping people of the Bronx. What legal services are being offered to Bronxites? After that, the New York City Public Engagement Unit addresses the rent challenges facing millions of New Yorkers. A rent-free specialist joins me to discuss rent-free benefits throughout NYC. Who is eligible for this type of rent assistance? Then, July marks Sarcoma Cancer Awareness Month. A Montefiore Health professional joined me to discuss the effects this disease has on people throughout our country. What are the risk factors associated with sarcoma? And finally, in the U.S., 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in his lifetime. In an effort to bring awareness to prostate cancer, Essen Health will host a free event encouraging men to get screened. At what age should men start getting screened? So please stick around. Open BxRx Tuesday starts now. Welcome to Open BxRx Tuesday on BronxNet. I'm your host, Kibin Alleyne, and I'd like to invite you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. New York State Senator Sepúlveda is offering legal services to Bronxites with the help of New York Legal Assistance Group. Senator Sepúlveda joined me today to discuss this effort. Senator, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure to be on the program and discuss this wonderful opportunity for many people in our community.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that a little bit more. Can you tell me about your collaboration with the New York Legal Assistance Group?
Absolutely. One of the biggest needs in our community is the need for free quality legal assistance. In our office, it's one of the biggest demands. People getting evicted, people having issues with child support, immigration issues, things that, generally speaking, are a major problem in communities like the ones we represent. And many of these constituents or residents cannot afford to pay an attorney for these services. So NYLAG has partnered with us to provide services to the community for free. We have had multiple dates now, and fortunately or unfortunately, the way you look at it, when we post the availability of NYLAG in our office, the time slots are taken right away. I mean, within minutes, we're full. And so now they're taking appointments. If people can't get to the appointments or people can't sign up, then we'll take their names, and for future dates, we'll connect them with NYLAG at their place, or we'll have a future date at our office. But I'm really, really thrilled with this program because it's such a big need in our community that having free legal services is something I'm very proud to work with NYLAG.
Can you actually tell us a little bit more about NYLAG and what made them stand out to you and made you want to work with them?
Well, I've had other colleagues of mine and members of my staff. One of my director of constituent services, when he worked for another elected official, worked in the city, worked closely with NYLAG. And I heard through the grapevine and speaking with other colleagues about the great work that they do. And so naturally, we wanted to take advantage of that, and we reached out to them, and they were very willing to help. I want to mention also that not only do they provide legal assistance, but they also provide financial information. They help you prepare for if you have bad debt, to try to get you out of debt. So it's so many different services that are provided, and the key word is free, that we are thrilled to be able to do this.
Now, what was the inspiration behind this effort to bring free legal services to the Bronx?
Constantly, we can tell with the pandemic, one of the major issues that we have now is housing and people being evicted, or the possibility of being evicted. And many times they need assistance in housing court. We also have individuals, parents, both male and female, who have issues with child support, for example. And to navigate family court is very difficult. And so they come in and they help. We have constituents that are getting divorced, because NYLAG also provides information on divorces. So they're able to come into the office and provide that assistance. And so, the reputation speaks for itself, and anyone who does that kind of work is always welcome in our office.
Now, you kind of touched on it a little bit. I want to go into it a little bit deeper about the types of cases Bronx sites can get help with. You mentioned a few of them, but I know on the flyer there's so many. So can you kind of go over some of them, just letting Bronx sites know what they can actually get from this?
Well, I mean, first I want to encourage people to go onto our website or my social media, and it explains not only the kinds of services that we provide, but also explains how to get the services, how to sign up, it's relatively simple, but we want to make sure that you get the information. It's such a vast amount of legal services that they provide, different areas. One, the other big issue that we have is issues of child support, and so they help with that. They represent you if you have issues with problems with your apartment, where you have repairs that are needed, you have dangerous conditions, things like that. They're able to step in and assist us. And so it's really it's so many different services that it's hard to, in this short time period, explain everything.
Right.
But I strongly encourage everyone to go to to our social media website and check up and see if the services that we provide can help you at any point.
Now, can you explain who is eligible for this type of assistance?
Well, anyone. I mean, we have people that come in from Manhattan, from Brooklyn, have come to our office for services, because when we advertise on social media, we don't make it specific to our district, because we can't. And I'm happy to help anyone anywhere in the city of New York or the state of New York. So they come in from here and they check in with our office, and as long as they had a previous appointment, they are seen. They come in. There's an intern or an intake person who takes a lot of the information to help the attorneys that are providing the service. And also, in case you don't have an appointment, or you missed a deadline, or you didn't get a slot, they're able also to put you in a position to see NYLAG at their offices throughout the city.
Now, I like that you said that it is eligible for pretty much anyone, because I do think a lot of times in the Bronx, the idea of just legal papers in general can be very overwhelming. Can you talk to, maybe that experience, if you've heard any from other Bronx sites, about how overwhelming it can be to deal with legal paperwork just in general?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, I've been a practicing attorney now for 31 years. And even for myself as a practicing attorney, sometimes I get flummoxed when you have to fill out petitions and processes like this, or paperwork or motions. And so it's frightening to some people. You have also the language barriers, people that only speak their mother language. And it's highly technical. And if you don't do things properly, then they get rejected. And to do it again, sometimes people get put off, get discouraged. It's a very difficult process to navigate legal waters in the courthouse. And NYLAG makes it so much easier for these individuals.
I love that you brought up the language barriers, because in the Bronx, we have so many different cultures. And I know, like, there's a large immigrant community just from all backgrounds in the Bronx. And sometimes it is nice to have somebody who maybe knows where you're coming from. Can you speak to that a little bit, about maybe how your team, will know the people in the Bronx on a deeper level than if they were to just go to anywhere else to get help?
Oh, sure. Look, our office, my constituent services, my Senate district office, is the busiest office in the entire state of New York. Some of my colleagues get 10 constituents a week. I get about 30 to 50 per day. And that's because it's a high need community. And it's a very diverse community. I have people from Bangladesh who speak Bangla. I have people from the West African diaspora that speak French. I have people from Latin countries, Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, who only speak Spanish. I mean, of course, Puerto Rico is part of the United States, but the mother language there is Spanish. And when people come to our office and they see that we have all these languages and these services available, it puts them at ease. And when they come to the office, they know they come to an office that is the requirement that I have of my staff is that we provide excellent services to our constituency. And so many of them come back again and again, even after NYLAG, because they feel very comfortable with my staff, the fact that we speak multiple languages, and with the services that we provide.
That's amazing, and I love that. Now, I guess going into it a little bit more, is there any paperwork that these people may need to bring for for these services?
Well, what I'd say to them is, again, call my office. You give an explanation of what the services that you need, and then we will connect you with NYLAG, who will then tell you what paperwork you may need to bring initially. So for example, if you're facing an eviction, then you bring your petition and notice of petition. If you're facing some sort of petition from family court, you bring it with you to make sure that the attorneys can review it. But the best thing to do is call in the office so we can better prepare you for your meeting.
And what can Bronxites, you told us a little bit, like, there's going to be people who understand you, so that's amazing. But what can Bronxites expect when they accept these services? Or what would you tell to a Bronxite who may be still feeling a little bit nervous about getting legal representation?
Well, the one thing I would tell them is that myself as an attorney, my staff, that we expect nothing but 100% dedication and quality of service to anyone, any member in our community that we provide the services for. And so I think many people in our community already know that. So you come in and you're going to be well taken care of. You're going to be serviced. And if for any reason we cannot, we'll make sure that we provide other accommodations. Look, sometimes people come into our office and they're confused. They don't really need legal services. They may need assistance with attempting to get an apartment or other issues that we can help without NYLAG. But when it comes to the legal issues, we really, really work closely with NYLAG. So if you have any help, please reach out.
And why is it so important for you to have something like this available to, the people in your community?
Well, I represent one of the poorest senatorial districts probably in the United States. Again, with many, many issues. With poverty, come other issues like health, come issues like housing, come issues like family matter issues. And a lot of times, people in our community just can't either navigate the water or afford to pay an attorney. And so being able to provide this service for free, to me, is a wonderful opportunity that I can then give back to my community.
Now, how can people sign up for this service?
Well, I'll encourage them to call the office at 718-991-3161. I think that would be the best way to do it. Go on social media, and there are other ways that explain to you how to get the service. But certainly, I think it's the best is to call or to go and check and see our flyers that we've distributed throughout social media for the last couple of weeks.
Now, there are also specific dates at the moment, but is this something that you would like to do again in the future?
Oh, I'd like to do it every day, but it's really NYLAG's call. When the budget comes, I try to provide funding for NYLAG so they can continue to come back. But I tell people, come and see what they do, and you're going to be very impressed, and you will see why this service is so important to the people in the community that I represent.
Now, how can people stay up to date with you specifically? Can you just let us know what your social media is?
Sure. You can follow me on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram. Just put in Sepúlveda or Senator Sepúlveda. You'll see how my name comes up. You can also go to the Senate social media sites. The New York State Senate has their own. Or you can email me at my Senate email address. It's sepulveda@nysenate.gov. And we make sure that we respond to everybody's emails.
All right, wonderful. Senator, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for allowing us to put this information out there so that more people, even if you don't live in my district, so more people can come and get services.
All right, that's so wonderful. Thank you again. We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.
Welcome back. Offering support to those who are in need, the New York City Public Engagement Unit is addressing the rent challenges facing millions of New Yorkers. Joining me to discuss their rent freeze program and their efforts to assist New Yorkers is rent freeze specialist for the NYC PEU, Natasha Vester. Natasha, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So, like I mentioned, the NYC Public Engagement Unit currently aims to support vulnerable communities struggling with rent. Can you tell me more about your organization and how they are assisting those who need it most?
Well, the New York City Mayor's Public Engagement Unit, it was created to develop a new model for government outreach, using community organizing principles to provide services to New York City communities. We're here to make sure that New Yorkers know about the benefits available to them and help them apply. But in addition to doing outreach, we also conduct case management to help people throughout the process of applying for or enrolling in certain benefits. We understand that the processes can be confusing, so we are here to bridge the gap between the New York City government and the constituents by offering one-on-one free support.
And I like that you.
I'm sorry.
No, you can continue.
Okay, so we speak over a dozen languages and we offer free help with a variety of issues like enrolling in health insurance, tenants' rights, and what I'm doing is here to talk about the rent freeze program.
So yeah, I like that you mentioned that it can be confusing because for a lot of New Yorkers, especially I know for like our community of the Bronx, a lot of people can't really understand or it's just hard to understand what's happening. So I love that you have that. And I also love that you have so many languages and people that can assist those. So I think that's great. Now, another way your organization helps others is through education. Can you just let us know what is rent freeze?
Well, the New York City rent freeze program, it helps eligible New Yorkers stay in their homes by keeping their housing affordable. The rent freeze program, it freezes the amount that you pay in rent. So in other words, if you enroll, your rent will stay the same from year to year without an increase. So this may not sound like a huge deal, but that money that builds up, I've seen people save thousands of dollars over the years with these benefits. So it will help.
Now, what are the two types of rent freeze benefits and who qualifies for them?
So there are two types of rent freeze benefits that are provided by the city. One is for New Yorkers that are 62. It's called the Senior Citizen Rent Increase Exemption Program. And in order to qualify, you must be 62 or older, have a household income of 50,000 or less. You must be spending 1/3 of your income on rent, and you must be living in a rent regulated, rent stabilized, rent controlled, or single room occupancy and listed on the lease. There's also the Disability Rent Increase Exemption Program, which is called the DRE. And to be qualified, you must be 18 or older, have a household income of 50,000 or less. You must be spending at least 1/3 of your income on rent, and you must be receiving a disability related government benefit. You also must be living in a rent stabilized, rent controlled, or a single room occupancy and listed on a lease.
Now, can you tell me about a moment where you helped a New Yorker freeze their rent? Because I can imagine this can be a lot, and this could be life changing, for so many people. So, can you tell me about a moment you actually helped change someone's life?
Yes. So I've helped a lot of Bronx community members access free injury, ultimately freezing their rent. There's one person I've recently worked with. She's a Bronx native with a disability. When I first talked to her, she told me that she was homebound. So because of this, and because the landlord did not provide her with the lease, I visited her home and I helped her complete the paperwork that she needed to apply. To apply for the rent freeze benefits, you would need to submit an initial application form along with other documents, which our team can help you with if you call our hotline at 929-252-7242. But through this work, I've discovered a number of issues with this client. She had housing issues where I connected her with the PEU's tenant support unit, and they helped her with filing a 311 complaint, and they made sure that her issues were resolved. And I also assisted her with receiving a lease. So PEU takes the role of providing one-on-one assistance to ensure that our clients not only receive the benefits that they deserve, but we also triaging across our internal teams across the city agencies to ensure that New Yorkers are getting the help and support that they need.
Now, what motivates you to continue working with these communities that need it most? Because I can imagine it's probably not the easiest. So what motivates you to continue doing this work?
Well, I love helping. I love working with people, and I love helping someone save money, especially during these times. Anything, anything I can do to help, I'm willing to do it. So I work with many clients who don't feel like they're getting enough assistance. So we don't just take your information and pass it along. We want to see you save money and get assistance from a city agency. So I'm willing to go the extra mile to help.
Now, your organization works with seniors and people with disabilities, as you mentioned. Can you explain how these communities are uniquely affected by this rent issue or this rent crisis that we're seeing in our city?
Well, these are some of the most marginalized New Yorkers who we work with through this program. So any increase is a challenge for our seniors and people with disabilities. This program, it helps people save money, thousands of dollars, and it helps them stay in their homes. Many are often on fixed incomes, and as the rent increases, people are getting scared that they won't be able to stay in their homes. So it's hard to buy food, pay for Medicare, and keep up with the rising rent. So with the rent increase, with the rent freeze program, you can freeze your rent as it is today, no matter what the increase is going on forward, and keep your home. So it's important, more important now than ever, to enroll in the rent freeze program. So you can call us again at 929-252-7242.
And as you mentioned, it is important. Can you explain why it's so important that we do have, programs like this to support people from the Bronx and also just people all over New York City?
Well, it is important because many people, again, can't afford to get by day. And with these programs, it will help them, again, save money, be able to obtain food, and get medical services. So these programs are very important for the Bronx communities and the communities within the 5 boroughs.
Now, what happens when your rent freeze application is approved?
Well, after your application is approved, the amount that you pay in rent, it will stay the same. And the government will cover the cost of any increase and will pay the landlord with tax credits. So you would need to file a renewal every year or two. But the Department of Finance will send renewal documents about 60 days before your benefits set to expire. So you will know when to renew. The renewal process is simpler than the initial application process, but PEU is here to help you every step of the way if you give us a call at our hotline at 929-252-7242.
Now, how can people just learn more about, your organization and the work that you're doing in general?
Well, you can find us at our website at nyc.gov/PEU or on social media. We're at the Mayor's PEU on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But also to reach a rent-free specialist like myself, you can call us directly at 929-252-7242.
Now, I'd like to know a little bit more about just your experience working in this field. What inspired you, to get involved in this type of work where you will be helping people, with rent? Like, what inspired you to just kind of go into the field of helping others?
Well, the feedback that I get helping people, I've had people call me crying, thanking me because, we actually took the time out to help and see it through. That really makes me feel good. And like I said, I love to help, and any way that I can help someone save money or keep their apartment, stay in their homes, I'm willing to do it.
And I really like that there's a focus on seniors and people with disabilities because I feel that often in our society, they can be ignored when it comes to those who need help. So can you explain why it's so important that there is a focus on this community?
Well, we don't want our seniors and disabled communities to, not be able to access housing, or even pay for rent. It's really hard. And some of the stories, I feel bad. And this is why, and there's some that, they're on a fixed income, so they're not able to pay for Medicare, or they're not able to buy food this month because they have to pay for, maybe add extra money to their rent, or, pay for a light bill, or things like that. So it's really important because, like I said, many are on a fixed income.
Now, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, before we let you go, can you just let everybody know once again how they can contact your organization if they need help, or if they simply just want to learn a little bit more?
Well, you can visit our website at the Mayor's PEU on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. And you can also contact us at our website at nyc.gov/PEU, or you can give us a call, rent-free specialist at 929-252-7242.
All right, Natasha, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.
Welcome back. July marks the start of Sarcoma Cancer Awareness Month. Here to discuss the effects this disease has on people throughout our country is Dr. David S. Geller, co-director of the Orthopedic Oncology Division at Montefiore Health System and professor of orthopedic surgery and pediatrics at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, can you tell me about the Montefiore Einstein Center for Cancer Care Melanoma Sarcoma Program?
Sure. Well, the program is really a compilation of a lot of different specialists that come together. They each bring their own expertise and their own, skill set, and we work together as a team to try and tackle some of these really tough problems.
Now, I think to better understand this, and I understand that this is not a cancer that a lot of people know about, can you just explain what sarcoma cancer is and how it affects your health?
Sure. And just to go back to the original question, melanoma is a type of skin cancer, and it's got its own set of kind of rules and paradigms. Sarcoma is a type of cancer that arises from some sort of connective tissue. It could be bone, it could be muscle, it could be fatty tissue. There's actually over 50 different kinds of these cancers, and although there are some common treatment approaches, sometimes there are differences depending upon the subtype.
Okay, so I'm really glad that you mentioned that because throughout my research, I'm just used to like cancer having like this, we kind of view it as this like overall type of thing, but there are so many different types of this kind of cancer. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, as we get better and better at discerning differences and understanding what drives and why some of these cancers begin, we're starting to categorize them, more accurately. And so what we used to group together and lump together, we're now starting to split apart. And that helps us understand how these are going to behave and maybe treatments that are specific and particularly good for one subtype. So some of the tools we use to figure this out include genomics. We look at the genetic drivers. What are some mutations that maybe turn these cancers on, and maybe some of the genetic mutations are also keys to figuring out how to best treat them. That's not always the case, and sometimes we have to use pretty standard techniques, whether it be things like surgery or chemotherapy. But we're trying to get more sophisticated in our approach and more specific in what we do and how we do it, so we can balance out the treatment and then the side effects or the morbidity from those treatments. And finding that balance and trying to do as little harm as possible, but still effectively treat the cancer is really, the key to all of this.
Now, according to the American Cancer Society, when the word sarcoma is part of the name of a disease, it means the tumor is malignant. Can you further explain what malignant means? And I know there's like another word that's the opposite, but I can't think of it right now. But can you explain that further for us?
Yeah. So a tumor is any kind of growth, and it might be a pretty simple growth that's not very dangerous. That would fall into the benign category. That means that it can grow in one area, but it's not going to spread generally. And then there are tumors there that are malignant, and that means that they're cancers. That means that they can spread, and by virtue of being able to spread, they are a risk to people's lives if they're not treated. So often we can put a tumor into one of those categories pretty neatly. We either know it's going to behave along a benign course, or we know it's going to behave more like a malignant tumor. And then, of course, there are some tumors that are a little harder to figure out that might not be quite as clear cut. But generally speaking, if something's benign, it's treated one way, and if something is malignant, it gets a whole different approach.
Now, unlike many other cancers, this cancer does not affect one specific part of the body. Does this make it challenging to spot or to even look for signs or symptoms?
Yeah, indeed. It's a pretty rare tumor in general. If you look at all sarcomas, there's only a few thousand, maybe 15,000 or so a year in the United States. When you compare that to carcinomas, things like breast cancer or prostate cancer or lung cancer, there are hundreds of thousands of carcinomas. And what that means is it's sometimes very hard to pick up, and it's sometimes only picked up or detected once it's sizable. To further complicate things, many soft tissue sarcomas, so sarcomas that start in the muscle or the fat, they don't really hurt, and people tend to not worry about them until they're pretty big. That also makes things more difficult because obviously the longer it's there, the more likely it is to cause problems. And it's not really the kind of thing you can screen for because they're so unusual. So those are challenges that we have to contend with.
Wow. So if you're unable to screen for that, is it like, how do you, I guess, make people aware, or how do they know if they have it or if it's something that they should even look into?
Yeah, great question. So generally speaking, if something is small, it's probably benign. I know it sounds very simple, but it's been pretty robustly shown that if something is smaller than, say, a few centimeters, maybe the size of a golf ball, it's probably benign. There's always exceptions to that. But if something is larger, if it's growing quickly, if it has any funny look to it, like it might be bleeding or ulcerated or anything like that, it should be checked out right away. In our practice, I have two partners. We have a pretty big program here at Montefiore, and we generally prefer to see patients with a small benign bump who are just being careful than to not have them come in and find out later that this was missed and it could have been picked up much earlier. So if you're ever in doubt, have someone look at it and evaluate it. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
I agree. Now, what is the most common type of sarcoma and who is most commonly affected by it?
Yeah. So sarcomas can affect any age group. I think that it depends a little bit on what kind you're talking about. If you're talking about soft tissue sarcomas, the most common subtypes probably what's called an undifferentiated pleomorphic sarcoma, or a UPS. And most of those are going to be in older patients, adults and older patients, in most commonly the thigh or the lower extremities. There are obviously other subtypes that have a predilection for different age groups, but we could spend a lot of time talking about all the different kinds and the different ages. Don't know if we have that much time.
Now, I'd really like to know, what are the risk factors associated with sarcoma? Because I know for a lot of cancers, people will say, to stay away from this. So if you have a family history of this, you should look for that. Do we see that with this type of cancer?
Most of them, no. There are very rare exceptions, certain family genetic predispositions, and certain, I guess, there are certainly a subset of patients who have a genetic predisposition for some of these cancers. But by and large, the vast majority of them arise for reasons we don't understand. We can't predict who will get one. And really, the best thing we can do is pick them up and treat them as expediently as we can once they're noticed.
Now, I know we talked a little bit about, briefly about symptoms, but what's something that you would tell somebody if they're not sure, or if they're just, maybe they have a tumor or something small that they've noticed? What would you say to them, and what should they look for, and how should they seek help if they do notice something?
Yeah, so if you have a sarcoma in one of the bones in your body, that tends to cause pain because the bone gets eroded a little bit. It becomes a little less robust structurally. And so that can hurt. If you have pain that you notice when you're sitting or when you're sleeping, if it wakes you up at night, And if you feel like your leg or your arm is more swollen or warmer, that should be looked at right away. When it comes to soft tissue bumps and lumps, if they're larger than, let's say, a golf ball or a few centimeters or a couple of inches in size, that should be looked at. And if you have something that has been growing rapidly, so it's changing and getting bigger and bigger each week, you should have that looked at right away.
Now, I really want to know, I know for a lot of people, like you mentioned, if you feel a little pain, there's this kind of joke online that like you Google something and like the worst thing possible pops up. How do you navigate whether, okay, maybe I actually should go to the doctor or this is just the internet trying to scare me?
Yeah, the internet's really hard. It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it really is a wealth of information, but it's sometimes hard to know whether that information is accurate. I think rather than trying to figure this out, it's always better to have somebody evaluate it. Oftentimes, in just a matter of minutes, we can, discern the difference between something pretty benign and pretty safe from something that is potentially concerning and potentially very dangerous. And it doesn't need to be a very complicated workup. It can sometimes be fairly simple. However, if you were to go to the internet and try to figure some of this out, make sure you're going to a reliable source. Make sure you're not looking at just an opinion piece or a personal anecdotal experience. I think you should look at an article or a website that's put out by a medical group that has experience with it and does this routinely day in and day out. That material is usually vetted, it's usually worded very carefully, and probably will give you a better sense of whether you ought to seek a professional opinion.
So we have about a minute left. Can you just tell me about Montefiore screening efforts?
Well, screening is tough. It's a little bit, for sarcoma, screening is difficult. Certainly the melanoma program has a screening effort, and that can go a very long way at early detection. And that's an effort that's undertaken by both dermatologists and surgical oncologists and other members of the team. Sarcoma is really hard to screen for. I think ultimately one day we hope to be able to do that, but it's not within our technical ability at this point. Our efforts at Montefiore are largely focused on three things. One is clinical care, and really that's the most important out of everything. We want excellent, top-notch, outstanding clinical care for all our patients. We're dedicated to education. We have a residency and a fellowship, and we focus a lot on the next generation of clinicians. And finally, we have a laboratory. We do a lot of research because if we want to find tomorrow's cures, we got to put the work in and the effort today. And that is probably the hardest part of what we do. We spend time fundraising, we spend time raising awareness about sarcoma, and we try to look ahead and find better solutions. We don't want to do next year the same thing we did 10 years ago.
All right, doctor, thank you so much for joining me.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
Welcome back. Prostate cancer is the most common non-skin cancer for men, and in the U.S., 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in his lifetime. Addressing the issue, Essen Healthcare is encouraging men in the Bronx to test for prostate cancer with a free screening. Joining me now to discuss their free screening event is Dr. Sahgal, Chief Medical Officer at Essen Healthcare. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me.
Good morning, Kibin. Thank you for inviting me over to your show.
Now let's jump right into it. Can you first explain how prostate cancer affects men?
But prostate cancer is a cancer, like you said, which is the second most common cancer after skin cancer, but is the second most common cause why men die from cancer after lung cancer. It's a gland in the body, and as with age, as you get older, the risk of cancer increases. And that's what has happened to the men, as they get older. 6 out of 10 men over 65 will be diagnosed with prostate cancer. And 2 or 3 of them may die from prostate cancer.
Now, can you let us know where is the prostate and how do you test or screen for this type of cancer?
The prostate is a very important reproductive gland for men. It is located right at the tip of the bladder, where, just behind, around the tube called urethra, which empties the bladder, and right in front of the rectum. It's an important gland because it helps to bring, the fluids, the sperms from the testicle, adds fluids to it, and creates the semen, which is injected through the penis at the appropriate time for reproduction.
And how do you test for prostate cancer or screen for this?
It's the prostate cancer is tested by blood test. In old times or long time ago, we used to do digital rectal exam, but now there's an enzyme, a substance made in prostate called PSA, prostate specific antigen. And there's a normal level of prostate-specific antigen in the body. And when there is more of it in the prostate secreted into the body, that's an indication there's something going on in the prostate. It doesn't mean if your PSA is high that you have cancer, but there's a chance of you may have cancer. So we would need to do more tests for that. And that is where after the screening, we actually may recommend further testing for prostate cancer screening, but the screening test is prostate-specific antigen.
Now, I understand that Black and African American men are uniquely affected by this. Can you explain how this cancer is affecting that community?
You are absolutely right. African American men are more not only more likely to get cancer, but also may get cancer at an earlier stage, can get cancer at a diagnosed in a more advanced stage, and if not treated, can have a worse outcome than other men. So it's very important for prostate for African American men and some other men who have genetic, predisposition to get screened for prostate cancer.
Now, I wanted to know, you kind of hint at it a little bit, but I wanted to know, are there any pre-existing conditions that can affect this? Because we often see this a lot within Black communities. This community tends to be a little bit more vulnerable when it comes to maybe cancers or other health conditions.
Um, you know, it's an excellent question. Uh, there is some evidence in science that higher level of fat in diet can cause a little more risk in prostate cancer. So red meat and other sources of animal food cooked at high temperature, high heat can. So that's why we find that people from vegetarian background tend to have less than people with a high meat intake. Uh, but there are certain diseases that are not specifically related to prostate cancer. It is mostly with age. It is not related to prostate enlargement that comes with age, and it's just like anything else with age. It needs to be screened appropriately.
Now, aside from your race, how can your family health history affect your chances of being diagnosed?
It's a some there is some a genetic predisposition to prostate cancer. So if somebody has a family history of prostate cancer or any other cancer in the family, I highly encourage them to be tested for prostate cancer.
So, what are some of the symptoms associated with prostate cancer?
Prostate cancer can come in a very subtle way. You can have problems with urination. You can have problems with a little bleeding. You can also have problem with erectile dysfunction. And frankly, you may have prostate cancer and you may not have any symptoms. So it's very important that we do an age appropriate testing, even if you don't have symptoms. On the other flip side, if people have prostate cancer and it gets advanced, they can get pain in the lower back, weight loss, fatigue, and that should prompt them to go and get their prostate checked.
Now, can you tell us more about the Essen Healthcare free screening event that's going to help a lot more Bronx men, take charge of their health and learn more about prostate cancer?
Thank you so much. Essen Healthcare is a multi-specialty group practice in the Bronx, and we have, we take great pride in taking care of the community. We are holding a prostate cancer screening program on July 30th at 899 Elton Avenue from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we recommend all men over 40 years of age, 40 years African American and 45 from other races, to come and do the cancer screening. Cancer screening for prostate is best done from 40 years to 70 years of age, although we screen for older patients also, but especially during this age group between 40 and 70, it is very important to get screened. It's done with a blood test, and if the blood test has indication an elevated PSA, then we would refer them to the appropriate specialist for further testing.
So I understand that this is by appointment. How can people actually sign up and make an appointment?
People can call up today and register and a phone number and register. The phone number is 646-921-3007. They can also go to Essen Healthcare website and register for the event. It's essenhealthcare.com.
Now, my last question is, what are some other ways people can screen or test for prostate cancer if they can't make it to this event?
Well, they can go to their primary care doctor, and then they can get tested for prostate cancer, again with a blood test. And that's the most routine test for prostate cancer. Primary care is very important for cancer screening, and I highly encourage them to go there.
So can you just let everybody know how they can stay up to date with your organization?
You know, we are all over the Bronx, and we love taking care of the community. Our community can follow us at LinkedIn, in Facebook, Twitter at essenhealthcare.com. And that's the same as a website.
All right, doctor, thank you so much for joining me.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
That's all for our show today. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.